Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Rodan. And today, as you can see, I'm still continuing my Disney movie marathon where I'll be talking about their movies, of course, TV shows, merchandising, I don't know, whatever the case may be. If it's related to Disney in any shape or form, then yes, of course, I'll be talking about it, because why the hell not, I suppose. This is my Disney movie marathon anyway, so of course I'll do that. Anyway, so I'm just doing a part three when it comes to this, folks, where these Christians are trying to talk about this movie. If anything, it's more in lines of they got the wrong perspective here, really. If I don't really get down to it, but what I mean is that, like I said in the previous two installments of this video series, is that they're claiming that like this somehow has started a trend of the live action movies being dark or whatever, which is a complete lie because there have been dark movies before. There have been really depressing movies from Disney before this point, whether it's animation or live action. So them having this kind of notion makes no sense, especially considering the fact if you spend enough time watching Disney movies, you would have known that. There's plenty of Disney movies that has already been dark, or at least have dark moments. If not the whole movie, at least have a few dark moments here and there. Anyway, and yes, there's been live action movies that have been dark before as a whole. So I don't understand where they got this notion, really, when you think about it. But okay, if you want to just strictly talk about live action movies, like the entire tone of the film is pretty gloomy. Okay, right off the top of my head, maybe like this one, for example, which I've seen a while ago, they got pretty gloomy. Even okay, another one is this one as well. When you think about it, so there's that. Another example of this is, of course, Return of Oz. A pretty good movie actually, but also one other thing is I can say this one as well. Very underrated though. Not a whole lot of Disney fans are talking about it, but I genuinely liked it. So to claim that this started a trend is just nonsensical because that's a complete and utter lie. I'm gonna throw an animated movie into the mix like this one, for example. That was pretty dark in its own little way, I suppose. So I don't understand where this notion's coming from, really, like at all. It just seems weird when you think about it. Anyway, without further ado, let's just go ahead, I guess. Here we go.
No, I think that, at the end of it, though, Cruella still is Cruella. She's still going to become the person who tries to kill, 99 Dalmatian puppies for a fur coat. So, I mean, they can't do that. They can't wink at you and say, well, she knows she's doing is bad or anything like that.
So you want the movie to literally wink at you? Yeah, it's not that her actions are good. We're not trying to justify it. Blah 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 blah. That's just bad script writing. You want the film to just spell it out to you that it's just her as a character that's doing that. I mean, okay, that aside, the script in this movie does have is terrible. It does have a bad script, but the way you want it to be done, it's still bad when you think about it. Still be considered awful.
Because then she wouldn't be who she is.
Yes and no. Like, if you're going to stick to canon, if you will, the canonical 101 Dalmatians story, but they did mess with it with Maleficent. So Disney has shown a willingness to sort of, what's the word, retcon
Right.
characters.
It's a fascinating thing, actually, what they did with this movie, because in a way,
Again, not really. Again, the writing is atrocious here. I would have been fine with the fact that if the villains were fighting each other throughout the entire movie, I'd be okay with it. Sure, at least that would have made a bit more sense. But this quote unquote origin story is poorly done. Again, the writing is just awful. She's supposed to be empowering, but even though she's a psychopath. So these two things are in conflict with each other.
hey, you're absolutely right, Emily. They don't excuse what she does necessarily, right? I mean, she is a bad guy through and through, but because the bad looks so attractive and because we associate so much of ourselves with her in a way, we kind of aspire in some ways. The movie asks us to aspire to be as cool and as edgy and as
What are you talking about? How is this edgy? How? How is it dark? What are you talking about? I mean, it does make itself an attempt to be more darker, sure, but how exactly? But okay, I mean, the tone of the movie is in conflict with itself. I'm supposed to be sympathetic to the main character, but she's a psychopath. You can't do those two things at once. So it seems rather odd. How am I supposed to be cheering for her? She's an asshole.
Provocative as she is.
Yeah.
When you look at the points, like if you just took the movie, took out all the visuals, and you took it point by point by point by point, you would say, okay, this is a cautionary story. This is someone turning evil because of the decisions that she makes. When you splash on the visuals, these lush visuals and all the fashion and everything else
And
that
she
goes
looks
with it,
great in the process.
she looks great in the process. It really does become this thing that makes villainy just look ever so
It looks
wonderful.
attractive. You
Absolutely.
sit there and you're like,
Oh, Christ. None of you are talking about the plot, like the actual story. Not really, because you're just speaking about the aesthetics of it, the overview of it, the way it looks, the visuals, the costume designs, the editing, the way it was choreographed. That's what you're referring to. I mean, yes, this is someone's stylistic type of look to it. Sure, it looks visually nice. But that's probably the nicest thing I can say about the movie. It looks visually pleasing. Sure, I'll say that it's well choreographed. But for the plot and characterization, it's awful. So on a technical level, yes, it's well made, but not for everything else. The communist country Venezuela is having an inflation problem at the moment, which isn't surprising, honestly. And of course, there's going to be corruption within the government, and it's going to be a difficult way to live for the normal people, I guess you can say. None of you would have survived a place like this, like at all, because y'all soft. Y'all really soft. Lo and behold, communism doesn't work, like at all. Like no kidding. Anyway.
this looks pretty good. I want to dress like that. I want to look like that. I want to be, that powerful figure that people fear and are intimidated by and write, songs about.
It wasn't too long ago that we actually talked about social media, right? And we talked about how when you act up, when you are edgy, when you are provocative on social media, it
You
gets
get noticed.
you likes, it gets you noticed. That's what this movie is about. It's how to get yourself noticed. And that's not necessarily the message we want to send to our kids.
Kids. It's for kids. It's for kids. Oh, this is so goddamn stupid. Why are you assuming that literally every single film produced by Disney is strictly for kids? That's dumb. And trying to shame Disney for it. On top of this, and another thing, that's not what the movie's about either. I mean, yes, she wants to be a popular designer. That is true, but she's crazy. So again, what are you talking about? In the animated version and in the 1996 remake, the character enjoyed skinning dogs. She actually had pleasure from that because she viewed herself above animals, therefore, she was perfectly fine with killing them. And then, of course, there's a whole fashion thing because, lo and behold, psychopaths, just like everyone else, have to eat. They have to use the bathroom. They have to shower, just like everyone else. So you can use this as a way to make money, therefore make at least a decent living condition. So I've said this already. It's been like multiple times. So anyway, other than that, I have a question to ask here for you. Where does this scream? Yeah, kid friendly for the kids. Yes, it's for the kids. How is this kid friendly content exactly? It doesn't have to be gory. It doesn't have to be like really graphic. It could be mature in theme. The theme itself, the situation itself is mature. The theme and the situation can be mature. The kids will not be able to grasp this like whatsoever at all. So, okay, let's have a look at this, for example. This is intentionally for smaller children. I mean, it could be also used for adults who want to learn Japanese, but that's kind of besides the point. Of course, it's going to be super simplistic, of course, which in itself doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing because the intention here. But my point here is that you can tell there's a stark contrast to the Cruella de Vil movies and this. So, again, what are you talking about? What?
Well, and again, pushing the Maleficent comparison one more step, I felt like both of the Maleficent movies had some depth to them. there's something really going on with a movement toward redemption.
So, okay, since none of you have actually explained anything, let me elaborate a bit more when it comes to the comparison to the prequel and the remake. These two characters might as well be two different people at this point, because what happens in the Cruella film contradicts what happens in the remake. Because in the remake, yes, of course, she's supposed to be this crazy person who wants to use this fashion business as a way to pretty much make a living because she doesn't need to eat and all that. And she's a crazy person. And yes, in the remake, she does attempt to wear the fur coats and whatnot as a way to be more dominant over the dogs because she views dogs as less than dirt and whatnot. And she has this strong psychotic hatred towards dogs just because they're dogs. Whereas in the prequel, she's supposed to be like this, yeah, this gore boss character. She can go through anything. I'm a woman. Heal me, war. That kind of attitude. This very strong-willed character type of thing, really. But it's giving me mixed messages because this is supposed to be taking place in the same continuity, right? So it contradicts that. So how did she become this kind of thing to begin with? This makes it seem like they weren't really caring about continuity whatsoever. And mind you, there was actually a sequel to the remake as well that came out a while after. Of course, when it comes to the original animated film, there was also one sequel for this film as well. Yep, they actually made a sequel to the animated version, but not connected to the other sequel. So yeah, it's confusing when you think about it. There was also a TV show as well for the animated stuff, but also followed by another animated series as well. So it's not that there wasn't even material that couldn't be used. So it just makes this entire thing more confusing.
This felt disappointingly shallow. I mean, it felt like it was all just surface appeal. And when you sort of dig down deeper into the story, there's not much there. It's a pretty thin story. And I found myself disappointed with that. Like, I get why they're doing it, but it didn't go where I wanted it to go.
Uh, what are you talking about? What is it that you get? Okay. Again, it's just going the whole idea that she's supposed to be a woman. I'm a strong woman. I'm a strong woman. I'm a strong woman. Therefore, hear me roar. Which in itself doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but it's the wrong character that they chose to do that. So it makes the whole plot of the entire film. The entire film doesn't work in a story way.
I think also in the Maleficent movies, they kind of rewrote the narrative. They were like, hey, you didn't get the whole story the first time around, so we're going to give you the real story. This is what actually happened. Whereas in this, it sounds like they're just saying, hey, here's the prologue. Here's what happened before we got the 101 Dalmatians.
Well, personally, I was just a little disappointed that they only got Emma Stone and Emma Thompson, and while they were at it, they didn't just go ahead and get.
Okay, I still don't know what you're getting at when it comes to an actor being cast out of some role and people being disappointment, yada yada yada. That just sounds like forced word problems, really. But okay, what's the importance of this? We still haven't really gone anywhere in the grand scheme of things. Like, okay, can we just get to the point? This is dragging out. It's just dragging out when you think about it. Okay.
Emma Watson, and let's go ahead and get Emma Roberts, maybe Emma Chamberlain. I mean, come on, why stop at just two Emmas?
We could
why
call
not
it
eat M&Ms while eating
Ocean's Emma.
Yeah.
Thank
Emma
you for
11.
the sympathy laugh. I can only hope that a couple of you listening out there also
Please.
are laughing out loud. Well, we've been talking about some of these other live action Disney movies, and we've talked quite a bit about Maleficent, but I have found watching a number of the more recent ones, Dumbo, The Lion King, The Jungle Book, even Mulan, that there's a darker edge to all of them. And maybe
Oh my god, this is cringe. It's so cringe. You're just ultra soft. You think those movies are too dark? Like really? Man, they got dramatic, yes. They got pretty damn dramatic, which is fine. I don't mind it. But those are too dark? Are you kidding me? Ugh, anyway. Yes, I know. He's trying to use this as a I gotcha moment. It's like I gotcha moment, but still, they're just so bad. It's horrible.
the darkness is as much a function of pulling it out of the realm of animation, which tends to be bright and colorful, and just filming it. But even thematically, there's just something kind of edgy and kind of not like the cartoons in the way that those stories have been told. And I'm curious, why do you think Disney has pushed these stories in this kind of direction?
To give it a new spin on the tale, because I mean, really and truly, yes, you can make all these movies live action and stuff, but if you don't change anything, if you don't
This is terrible. This is terrible. Oh my god, this is terrible. Can we just stay on subject matter? We're not really doing that. You haven't really explained anything. I thought we were supposed to be talking about Cruella DeVille. Or at least this version of the character, anyway. We haven't really spoken about that. Like, at all. Whatsoever. Ah.
add like maybe that darker edge like you're talking about, or rewrite the narrative as they did with Maleficent, or give us the prologue as they're doing in Cruella, then you're not giving us anything new. Nobody's going to be interested. So I think it's almost a way of like, yes, we want your kids to come see it, but we want you who maybe watched it when you were children to come back and see it because we gave it a new spin, and so it's kind of like they're saying we do still want to appeal to
Kids, it's for kids, kids. No, are we doing this again? Generally speaking, no. It depends on what movie. That could be strictly for kids. Some of them are just for the family. Yes, there's a difference. But nothing here's a new spin. The remakes or prequels or whatever you want to call them, nothing here's new. They're just recycling the same stories over and over and over and over and over again. So nothing here's new. Not really.
your kids, but we also want to get the people who were kids when these originals came out to come back into the theater again.
I think that's really true. I think that you do have this multi-generational pull. Like, you love this story as a child, your grandparents loved that story when they first saw it or whatnot, and
your
it's sort
great grandparents.
exactly. So it sort of becomes this thing where you can look at an old story and turn it into something new. But at the same time, I go back to our earlier conversation, right? We were talking about some of the classic Disney movies of all time. Snow White, I don't think it would have been rated G if it had landed in the theaters today.
What are you talking about? Yes, of course, movie ratings change over time. That's a thing. But what does any of this have to do with anything? And the only reason that we have movie ratings to begin with was because of a lot of you Christians will complain about the content of the movies from way back when.
Because there are some really dark moments. Pinocchio, Fantasia, all these things had some pretty interesting dark elements. I think that it's a product of, as we grow older, we sort of sanitize what we might have seen as kids, and we think of it as lighter than perhaps it was. The darkness pulls us back into the story in a way, and I think that that's kind of interesting.
So it could be that my entire premise is off.
Well,
it's
an interesting thought, right? I'm not saying that it is, but it is kind of an interesting question.
I'm still confused here. So you're claiming that the Disney company, the studios, well, technically the directors anyway, are intentionally showing like really terrible, awful things that's really gloomy to children. Like something that's extremely morbid. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, that you go back and watch some of these original things. We watched Dumbo a couple years ago, the original animated one. I'm like, this movie is crazy dark. In terms of what's happening thematically.
I mean, I'm thinking of like specifically Bambi and The Lion King and stuff growing up, where you actually you basically watch the parent die. Maybe not in Bambi, but you see what's happening as a kid, and it's like
I'm still confused. I mean, yes, kid movies, family movies did change over the years. Again, that's true. Certainly elements of these types of movies did change over the years, of course. There's certain things that were allowed back in the day, like smoking and drinking, were allowed in Disney films, but versus today, they can't be shown anymore. Or even gambling. Yes, gambling was shown in kids' movies before, but not anymore. This happens.
Like, it's a dark moment. Like, I can't think of a single person my age who has seen The Lion King who didn't cry when they saw Simba go up to his dad, like, after the stampede and just be like, Dad, get up. We gotta go now. Everybody cries.
And it's an ongoing joke in our house. Whenever my kids couldn't find mom, they'd always go, Mother, Mother.
So your family was a little bit darker in their humor.
And do the Bambi call straight up.
Y'all a bunch of assholes. I mean, I know Bambi is a fictional character and all, but you're making fun of the fact that he was trying to find his mother. Okay, she was dead at that point. But you were laughing at this? He didn't know any better until later, of course, but come on.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
See, you know what it is? It's a household full of Jonathans out there that's making these Disney movies. They all had the same mindset, and they were like, hey, I want to give
true.
this Disney tale a twist.
It's Disney's fault.
That's hilarious. But I'm even thinking about 101 Dalmatians as it is. When I consider the original Cruella, honestly, I think she was a little bit scarier.
I mean, okay, yes, in comparison to the more recent version of the character, she's different. That's true. But, okay, I still think you're soft. Like, uber soft. Ultra soft. Can we just end this? This is really dragging out, like I just said earlier.
Than the Emma Stone version.
Well, I mean, Cruella de Vil, if she doesn't scare you, no evil thing will.
Yeah, exactly. She has these really sharp cheekbones. She's gray. She's
got a
is
great
really
villain's laugh.
wicked. And in some ways, Emma Stone feels all the problems with the movie are, I think, right on. We've got some really serious things to consider, but Emma Stone, in some ways, felt more cartoonish than the original
Because
cartoon.
she's too pretty.
And I'm confused. So, what you're trying to suggest here is that, okay, I'll say this. If the character looks way too pretty, she can't be taken seriously as a villain? Why not? Okay, if a character looks attractive, so what? How is that in the way of the character being threatening? I don't understand this perspective here. It is so dumb.
Maybe.
I think because she's so over the top.
Yeah.
You know, she is very vampish, as is
Yeah.
the Emma Thompson character. They are so larger than life, and because of that, they feel just out of the realm of possibility. When you have a cartoon, oddly enough, that sort of anchors their weirdness to, I think, a kid-centered reality.
Okay, yes, there are certain advantages when it comes to making an animated movie than versus comparing this to making a live action movie. Yeah, that's actually true. But this is nothing. This is a nothing sandwich again because okay, a stylistic change can be done in an animated movie that cannot be done in a live action movie. Okay, true. But so what? You're just rambling on. Ramble, 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 ramble.
People, calm down. Okay, so here's my question. Compare Emma Stone's performance versus the original versus Glenn Close's
Glenn Close,
performance in the live-action version of 101 and 102.
Standing out here yelling rabble, rabble, rabble isn't going to help anything.
Dalmatians. What do you think? Did Glenn Close scare you? Because
You know, I really like Glenn Close, and so, but I do think
But we don't know what else to do, Mayor.
People, what do you think we need to do?
that she was super evil in those. I mean, she was, but again, it was sort of this cartoonishly evil type of character, whereas the Cruella that we see in the cartoon.
Yeah, remember that one song that from that one show, song that never ends. That's this. That reminds me of this right here.
It's just strangely, even as out of the realm of possibility as she is, she felt more real.
I
Which is the better version? I don't care.
certain images, I guess, would haunt me. And I remember the first
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
101 Dalmatian cartoon, and I remember this scene where like
Blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. Do not care.
Corella's in a car and she's driving around and she's like looking for the
Yes.
Stop. Please make this stop. Stop it.
puppies, and in her head, the way it's peering back and forth. I remember it was like this
This is a joke, isn't it? It has to be a joke.
haunting image, just her
Yeah.
face, like you said, Paul, with those sharp
Y'all just keep talking.
cheekbones and stuff. Where I felt like the Glenn Close version to me was more humorous.
Then more talking and talking and talking.
And maybe it's because Horace and Jasper. I mean, Hugh Laurie was so awesome, and
Yes.
not that. I mean, and now
Talk, 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 talk.
you got Paul Walter Hauser as Horace. I can't wait to see that actually, because I love Paul Walter. Hauser, especially in Cobra Kai. But yeah, no, it is interesting how sometimes you almost kind of throw these, and Disney's good at that. They throw humorous characters in there. Lion King I was crying when Mufasa died. Of course, I cry in every movie. But moments later,
You are on record.
Can we just wrap things up here? Because there's other things I would much rather be watching than this. Because they're way more interesting, I would say. Because I'm bored. I'm genuinely bored here. Oh.
Just saying that. So thank you for
exactly. But moments later, you're laughing when Whoopi Goldberg and Cheech Marin and stuff are sitting there going, "Ooh, Mufasa, ooh, Mufasa, ooh." I mean, they always throw in those humorous characters, and I like that because it kind of takes the tension out of the scene.
Well, this conversation has.
Why are we comparing the two? Neither movie's good. Both are terrible. Oh boy, and the one that came out in '96 is not the original film. Why wouldn't you think that this was the original film? I don't get it. It's a remake of the animated movie that came out during the '60s, the early '60s, really. But I mean, okay, I don't know. Just what I didn't like neither of them at all. I mean, both of these movies have their own set of problems, really, when you think about it. But you're just going for this one because of nostalgia. That's it. So since you have not this nostalgia factor to it, you think the other one's better just because of that alone. And what does this have to do with anything, really? I don't know.
Gone some directions that I did not foresee today.
Those are the best conversations.
And I
right?
hope that as you have listened today, that you have had something that you can take away from it. And I think one of the things I have taken away from it, even sort of trying to corral, I'm not going to say, leading, because it's more like galloping horses galloping everywhere, is that sometimes we come up with these.
It just comes off. You're just trying to talk about the one from the 1990s. That's it, really. You haven't really spoken about the plot. Not really. And you thought the other version was scary? You're soft. Like I said before, you're soft.
Categories. The earlier stuff is not as problematic, but I think it's been great to realize sometimes when we go back and look at these things, there are issues with all of it. Mm-hmm. And as I think about raising my 3 kids, there are multiple levels of work that need to be done here. There's a discernment piece on the front end. Do I think that my kids can?
Again, I do not care which one you think is better. I just do not care. I do not care. I do not care. Oh my god, I do not care. I got other things to worry about. Just I don't know anymore. Just make it stop. Christ.
Handle this, and that involves doing some research both into what you're going to watch and knowing your kids, right? And this is a PG-13 movie, and I think sometimes with Disney, it's easy to give it a pass because, well, it's Disney. How bad could it be? It's like, well, for an adult, it's not that bad. But for a little, that PG-13 rating is, I think, a good jumping off point when you begin to think about this. Yeah, it is. And my kids, I asked them if they wanted to see it, and my 2 daughters, who are almost 11 and almost 13.
I mean, I guess joke's on me. I care enough to make a response. I guess whatever. And of course, think of the children. Please think of the children. How the hell do you think this is too dark? What the hell? So you thinking that Disney is intentionally trying to sell something that's really morbid to kids, something that's like really disgusting, really awful, something that's gross to kids? Why are you under the assumption that's going on? How does any of this make any sense? Like, at all? I do not get it. I'm confused.
And you're like, no, that looks creepy. I have no
Wow.
desire to see
Wow.
that. So, in some ways, I feel like the creep factor sort of pushed them out of bounds. But I think in the midst of something, you also have to watch how your kids are responding. And it may be that something that you didn't think was a problem, you can see them sort of non-verbally start to shut down. And that's a point where you maybe pause it and say, okay, what are you feeling here? Do we
As I said in my previous video, when it comes to this, Disney, the corporation, it's not their job to babysit, okay? You do that. You're supposed to be guarding them. So you're telling me that you think that if they see something too scary, if it's too frightening, they're going to emotionally shut down compared to before because they come out drastically different than comparing to when they watched the movie. So after watching this specific movie, with this version of the character anyway, they're going to emotionally shut down because they think the movie's too scary, too weird. So you're going to act as if the Disney Corporation will be a bunch of bastards because you're thinking that they're intentionally doing something sinister just to attack your kids, just so they can do something like this to emotionally shut down. What made you come to that conclusion? This doesn't make any sense. Talk about jumping the gun here. You're not giving no context to anything. Like, what's there like? There's some kind of spiritual warfare going on here somehow. I don't get it.
want to go any further with this? And then I think after the fact, and Jonathan was talking about maybe doing this with older teens, maybe you can handle the content just fine, but there's worldview issues here that it would be great for you to engage with. And so, what did you think of that? What did you think of the fact that it kind of made evil look good? That would be a fantastic conversation to have with maybe slightly older teens if you do decide to go see Cruella or other movies that you see this summer, because they're going to be coming at us left and right at this point because they've been storing them all up during COVID. So I hope that
Neither of these movies are that morbid. Neither of them. But they're acting like it's extremely graphic. It's all blood and guts everywhere. It's so gloomy. I mean, okay, there are other ways. Yes, there are other ways to make it mature. You don't necessarily have to make it graphic. True, but they're treating like as if this is like the most gloomy, most depressing as, most dark, most deprived thing ever. It's not that. By no means that whatsoever. What made you think that this was like this? The way you're acting about this movie is just that. Just have your children, your little kiddies, watch one of those gore cartel videos because of these movies. What? I don't get it.
this conversation has given you a chance to maybe think more deeply about one of those angles and how it applies to your life. So, what about you? Who is your favorite Disney villain and why? Let us know at our Facebook page or on our Instagram page, which you'll find at Plugged In Team. One word, Plugged In Team. And we would love to keep talking with you about everything we've been talking about today.
Okay, aside from the fact that you worded the last bit rather weird, but I mean, of course, those going to be the teenagers going. Okay, the older teens anyway, the young adults. They may be handling some material, so situation far better than somebody that's maybe 8, 9, or 10 or whatever. Of course, because they should have a better grasp about the world around them, as they should. That's fine. I'm not against that. But what does any of this have to do with anything? I am so confused about all this. Like, what the hell are you talking about exactly? And a lot of you Christians would be the same type of individuals who would complain about the fact that how interracial dating is somehow a sin against God. And the whole thing with that is, of course, questionable because what do you care all of a sudden? It just seems like you just want to control everything. And when it comes to kids' lives, when it comes to kids dating, when it comes to your kids watching entertainment, like watching something like this might give them ideas. Not like they might be attracted to a certain group of people. What does it matter anyway? I don't know.
And as our thanks for being a part of the Plugged In Show family, today for a gift of any amount, we would love to send you a copy of Paul Asey's book, Burning Bush 2.0, How Pop Culture Replaced the Prophet. You'll find a link to order that book in the episode notes for today's show, as well as on the Plugged In blog entry for our podcast today. Or if you prefer, just give us a call at 800-A-FAMILY. As always, thanks so much for spending some time with us, and we look forward to connecting with you again next week for another episode of The Plugged In Show.
All right, and that's that. That's how their podcast thing just ends right there. Yeah, good. Finally, because honestly, I didn't feel like doing another one of this, even though I feel like doing 3 parts is too much at this point. But yeah, I just thought I'd do this as a way to discuss Disney, of course. Obviously, I didn't like Cruella de Vil movie, and I didn't like the podcast because it just came off as though they were just taking stuff out of context. Granted, they didn't provide any context themselves as to why they believed whatever they were believing. What was this anyway? I don't know. What was any of this? I have no idea. It's a nothing sandwich. Of course it is. And I still don't know, even after 3 parts, I still don't know what any of this has to do with anything. Uh, I mean, okay. Ultimately, I guess one thing I could take away from this is that they're acting as if that the Cruella de Vil movie, well, the recent one anyway, it's too morbid. They're acting as if it's too graphic. It's like too out there. It's too scary for kids, for kindergartners. And why do you have to show this to kindergartners? I don't get it. I mean, they're not the target audience for this anyway. I don't get it. So they're not going to be able to comprehend of what's going on in the film, even if it was a good movie, which it isn't. Even if it was, except it's not, they're not going to understand anyway. They are not going to understand what's going on in the film to begin with. So why, of all things, you want to show them this character, this version of the character? I don't get it. And how is it too dark? Explain that to me. Someone please explain that to me. How is any of this too gloomy? How is it too scary? You're not gonna say it's like one of the most morbid things ever made from Disney, and somehow there's not a trend that this kind of thing is gonna be a thing for the Disney movies from then onward. Are you kidding me? I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm just gonna wrap things up. Just to give my 2 cents here. That's all. And just there was a discuss. That's why this was split in, had to be split into 3 parts. And when you think about it, because just all about literally everything they got wrong. Really, just ultimately just to say that it's too scary. That's it. This entire thing was too scary. Really, I don't know how this was too scary in some ways. I don't. That's the part that escapes me here. I mean, among other things, but that's the part that gets me the most. How is anything too scary, really? I don't get it. But anyway, that'll be it, folks. I just want to just do this because as a way to talk about Disney, of course, in one way or another. I mean, I guess it wasn't really about. It's about nothing. This was about nothing, really, when you think about it. They just keep yammering on about nothing. Okay, if you feel you like maybe a certain movie from Disney is too spooky or whatever, don't show it to your kid. That's it. That's it. That's literally just don't show it to your kid. That's literally it. Why do you have to make this into a whole thing? If something is far too scary for your child, so deal with it. What do you expect me to do about it? I don't get it. What's going on? I don't know what's going on. What are you talking about? Anyway, that'll be it, folks. So, of course, I appreciate anybody for watching this. It just seems so nonsensical when you think about it, because it is. Anyway, whatever. Thanks for watching, and take care. Until next time. See ya. Oh yeah, later. Ugh.